this is Joseph from The Healthy Marriage. You know, every couple has issues that they need to address and deal with, ranging from communication, trust issues, money, raising kids. All of these things come into play, and we have to navigate our way through them. One of the most difficult decisions or discussions that a couple has to make or needs to have is on sex and their intimate relationship. And so I wanted to take just a little bit of time and talk through some perspectives and how we should approach this, dealing with and discussing sex in our marriage relationship. It's the proverbial having the marital sex talk, like when you were a kid and somebody had to explain the birds and the bees. Well, I don't have to explain the birds and the bees, but we do need to talk about how to talk about sex. And so I think this is an important issue for couples. And so we want to take an opportunity and at least answer some questions that we get periodically, but more than that, give you some principles and some things to consider as we talk about this important issue in our relationship. Oh, by way of introduction, discussing sex and intimacy issues with your spouse, it's vital. It's important for maintaining a healthy and a fulfilling relationship. The conversation can be very sensitive and challenging at times, but when we approach it with openness and we approach it with a desire to understand as well as to be understood and with respect, we can significantly strengthen our marriage bond. So unfortunately, many couples find it difficult to do this, to have this discussion. And it's a very delicate issue with many women if they've been sexually abused or violated in some way. And so I want to say at the outset that if you've been violated sexually, and that's in your background, I encourage you to get the help you need in dealing with that emotional trauma from that event, because it will, if it hasn't already, it will impact your marriage. Not only in your sexual expression, but it impacts so many different things, because those events go deep into the soul and they begin to define, in some sense, how we view relationships. And so it can have a devastating impact. And so my heart goes out to you. And if that's you, I encourage you to get some help. We even have some resources available on the website. But I want to say that up front. I'm approaching this from an 80-20 perspective. So 80% of the marriages we deal with are relatively healthy. They have issues they're trying to navigate, but they want a better marriage, and they love each other, and they've just got to work through their junk. 20% are on the fringe, and it comes from, people who are narcissistic and that marriage will never change, or abusive situations, or where there's been some trauma that has dictated the landscape of that marriage. That's the 20%, and I'm not dealing with that in this video today. I'm dealing with the 80% that are relatively healthy, but they need some guidance. So we're talking about, in this introduction, we're talking about, those who haven't experienced sexual trauma and are relatively healthy in their marriage. So how should we think about sex? And this is important. So at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you a few practical tips. I think 5 or 6 tips on how to have a healthy perspective about this, and some do's and some don'ts, and how we should look at sex and emotional intimacy. Before we do that, let's talk about a sexless marriage. A sexless marriage, by definition, is one where sexual intimacy occurs no more than 10 times a year. And unfortunately, surveys suggest that as many as 20 million couples in the United States alone are living in a sexless marriage. And this has devastating consequences for the relationship. Sex is a way of expressing love, care, physical intimacy for married couples to keep their relationship strong. And not only does sex create emotional connection, but it also provides comfort, and it can lead to healthier forms of communication and other aspects in the relationship. So wanting and needing sexual fulfillment is not wrong. We're talking about in the confines of marriage. Now, outside of that, we give some warnings because studies show that it has a negative impact on the marriage satisfaction of your relationship as you move forward. But it's natural and necessary for couples to desire sexual experience with one another. So here's an important thing. Never diminish your spouse's desire for sex. Now, we get on different wavelengths, and there are different hormonal issues that women deal with, and there's testosterone issues that men deal with, and we have different sexual desires and even different sexual attitudes. But it's important that we never undermine or diminish our spouse's sexual desire. This undermines the overall intimacy, and it can create resentment in your relationship. We'll talk a little bit about that, more about that in just a bit. So it's essential to understand and communicate your own needs and desires, as well as to listen to and acknowledge your partner's needs. So we're talking about a mutual understanding, because this forms the basis of a satisfying sexual relationship. Intimacy is necessary, and it's natural and normal. And so once we approach it in the sense of, I want to understand as well as be understood, we're laying the proper groundwork to move forward. So to do this, we need to create a comfortable and non-judgmental space for these kind of conversations. We can't judge and we can't diminish. So one way to do this is simply use I statements when you're expressing feelings and thoughts and desires. And so we do this. When we do this, it doesn't place blame on our spouse, and it doesn't make our partner feel somehow inadequate or blamed for something. And that's important. The role of emotional intimacy in sexual satisfaction is very important to understand. So emotional intimacy many times precedes physical intimacy. This is especially true with women. Emotional intimacy is crucial for a great sex life because it's about being really close and connected, and it's about trusting each other beyond just the physical stuff. And it means that you and your partner really get each other. You're on the same wavelength. You feel safe in sharing your deepest thoughts. You feel connected. You care about each other more than just the physical side of things. There's intellectual and emotional connection that happens there that's important. So this deep connection makes sex more than just a physical act. It actually turns it into a way that we express our deepest love and our greatest sense of closeness. So when you feel emotionally bonded, every touch feels more special. Every moment together means something more. And it's important to understand that. So the role of emotional intimacy in this sexual satisfaction, to put it simply, the better you connect on an emotional level, the better your sex life can be. It makes everything feel more intense and more meaningful. So we need to engage in activities that build this emotional intimacy outside the bedroom. Things like date nights, shared hobbies. One that's often overlooked and undervalued and underestimated is just the process of having deep conversations. I think one of the reasons my wife and I have such a closeness is that we talk about things that matter most in life. We talk about philosophical ideas and our beliefs about things, and this makes us feel emotionally connected with one another, which enhances physical intimacy. You know, it's common for partners to have differing sex drives. I mentioned this earlier. So discussing these differences openly can prevent feelings of rejection and feelings of pressure that often come with this topic. And so it's important. You know, it's been said, women want to have sex because they feel close. Men want to have sex in order to feel close. Boy, that's a huge distinction, and understanding that one statement can be the difference in how you connect and how you communicate. It can de-escalate a volatile situation and escalate intimacy more. And so that's a statement I really hope you'll take in mind and consider as we work our way through this. So navigating these differences in libido and hormonal issues. So being aware of these differences will help you explore ways to meet each other's needs. So that's the key. Always remember, this is about serving your spouse and being willing to meet their needs. When we approach things from an extraction, I want, it's about my needs, it's about what I want, it's about my fulfillment, my desires, it's about me. When we're pulling away from our spouse, extracting something, if both partners are doing that, no needs are met. No one's needs are met. But when it's about serving, what can I do to meet your needs? What can I do to enhance your life? What can I do to make you feel more secure, happier, healthier? All of that, when we're giving into the relationship, when both couples are doing that, then all needs are being met. So I hope you see the difference there. When we're extracting, wanting and desiring, and we're pulling away from our spouse, nobody's needs are met. When we're giving to our spouse, everybody's needs are met. And that's one of those mysteries of life that if we miss that, we go through a marriage relationship frustrated and struggling. So it's about serving your spouse and being willing to meet their needs. So we work together to find middle ground that respects both partners' needs, desires, and wants. So one thing you can do is consider scheduling intimacy to ensure both partners feel like they're a priority, they feel like their needs are valued. Physical affection outside of sexual activity is also important for maintaining a sense of closeness. So we can't underestimate and can't miss the importance of this physical touch beyond sex, because that's an important aspect. Regularly engaging in non-sexual touch like cuddling, kissing, holding hands, anything we can do to maintain that physical connection only makes the sexual connection even better. So it's not just about hugs and holding hands. Now, it's a way to show that we authentically care without having to say anything. Touch sends a message of support, companionship, and friendship. And when I say friendship, I'm not talking about a superficial thing. Friendship in terms of this covenant concept. When someone gives you a pat on the back or a high five, it can make you feel better. It reduces stress, and studies show this, that the more we feel more connected to people that we contact. That's why in many cultures, men hug one another. They kiss each other on the cheek. In America, we shake hands. It's that sense of closeness. El mano, you're my brother. And we feel that sense of connection by the physical touch. Now, we translate this over into marriage. The more we can weave into non-sexual connection and touch into our relationship, the more it enhances sexual communication. So, continuous open communication about sex and intimacy, it's important if you're going to have a healthy relationship. Regularly check in with each other. I think this is important. We check in on financial matters. My wife and I have a quarterly meeting where we sit down and go over finances, talk about goals and how are we on track to meet our goals, and is our business running smooth. I think it's important to have check-ins on sexual relationship as well, just as you would all these other areas of your partnership, because it's important. It prioritizes it. So use these discussions as opportunities to connect deeper, to understand each other, and to grow together. So navigating these discussions about sex and intimacy, it does require a lot of patience. And more importantly, empathy. Put yourself in your spouse's position. Couples that do this frequently and regularly are more happy than couples who don't, because it creates a willingness to be vulnerable. So when we approach these conversations in this way, with care and mutual respect, we can deepen our connection and we can enjoy a more fulfilling physical intimacy and relationship. So I mentioned I would give you some takeaways about sex, some big takeaways. I'm not sure how many there are. We've been talking about this. I've said here are X. I think there's 5 or 6. So the first one is one that needs to be reiterated more and more. Never use sex as a weapon against your spouse. Never punish them by withholding sex, and really don't even use it as a reward. It should be what it is. It should be a natural part of your relationship. And I bring that up because I can't tell you the number of men that I've talked to who said, my wife only has sex when I've been a good boy, and they use the air quotes, or she doesn't have sex with me when I didn't do something she wanted, or, didn't meet her expectations about something. So I think it's important to keep this in mind. If you want a healthy relationship, don't use sex in that category and in that manner, because it will diminish your overall connection. It's strange to me how we crave connection, and yet at the same time, I've seen men and women use sex as a weapon against their spouse in order to try to feel more connected, and it only works in the opposite. It undermines. So that's something we need to keep in mind. So number 2, always seek to think first about your spouse. Now, this doesn't mean that your needs are not important. It doesn't mean you can't express your desires, wants, and needs. It simply means that we should all strive to live that selfless life. Remember, the give. When we're all giving into the relationship, when everybody's pouring in, all needs are met. When everybody is pulling out, eventually the well is dry. So we've got to have a giving, my spouse first mentality. Number 3, sex is the one thing that should only be encountered with your spouse. We can do a lot of things. You can have a business meeting with somebody else. You can have conversations with other people, but I believe that in marriage, there should be a handful of things that are only shared with your spouse. This makes it exclusive. This keeps it special and unique. And sex is at the top of that list. It's the one thing that is only reserved for you and your spouse. That makes it important, that makes it special, and that makes it valued in the sense that we ought to make it a priority and do our best to figure out how to make it work in a way that is fulfilling and pleasing. Number 4, sometimes we underestimate that sex has many benefits, including stress relief, release of oxytocin in our system, emotional bonding. We've got several articles. If you just Google the importance of, go to our website, thehealthymarriage.org, and search for the importance of sex. We got several articles in a series we did talking about the benefits, the physical, emotional, spiritual benefits of sexual intimacy. And I bring that up because I think it's important that we remind ourselves that this is something to benefit our marriage. It's not a negative, it's a positive. And then finally, sex should be a joy in your relationship. It shouldn't be a burden that you have to fulfill. And so if it's anything other than this, if it's anything other than that in your relationship, I encourage you to get the help you need to restore this expression of love and closeness. We have resources. If you go to our website, thehealthymarriage.org/toolkit, there's a whole list of resources. You can search through all of those. And we also have a marriage academy, healthymarriage.org/academy, where we have some free courses, some paid courses. In fact, we're finishing up 2 courses right now, one on emotional security and building trust in your relationship, and one we call our communication boot camp. This is a boot camp. We cover communication from A to Z to help couples learn how to connect when they communicate. And sex is a part of that. Sex is a part of that connection and that communication. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope it's beneficial for you. And I want to thank you for watching the video. There's many other ways you can explore this. As I mentioned, the resources on our website. And so we'll try to put those links below. But thanks for taking time to listen to this. I hope it gave you a fresh perspective and some insight, maybe some concepts you didn't know before. But if anything, I hope it just renewed your desire to make your sexual intimacy in your marriage everything that it should be and could be when we get on track with one another. So that's all for today. Thanks.